Hi guys, charities that fight poverty have been calling on the Prime Minister to U-turn on the two-child benefit cap. And the government has been under growing pressure from backbench MPs since the policy was first announced. It must be remembered that the two-child benefit cap isn't related to child benefit, but instead a universal credit, something many media outlets misrepresent. Now, the conflict within the Labour Party has been rumbling on for months, and while there is polling that suggests that the public support the idea that rich people shouldn't get money for raising kids, at the same time voters don't want to see children going hungry. Now, step forward Nigel Farage, who it seems is attempting to exploit this division within the governing party to his advantage. However, it has caused some confusion from people who generally support Reform UK. Here Farage-friendly GB News tried to both defend Nigel, but also attack the idea of stopping children from being poor. Bizarre stuff, have a listen.
Heather, what are your thoughts on this? Is Nigel Farage appealing to the left, or is he just making sensible policies?
Okay, why can't it be both? In the sense, why can't it be a sensible policy and on the left? The framing here is, well, you can't be on the left and have sensible policies. We're off to a good start.
I find it really hard to classify it as the left, other than Angela Rayner and her gang that clearly want to bring this through. So on the one hand, you've got to say that's clever of Farage by trying to put his tax on their lawn. Alternatively, you go to any Middle England area, and the idea that the state should pick up the tab because you want more children than 2 children, but you can't afford it, that's not fair. That's not right.
Okay, let me clarify once again. This is related to universal credit. It's not child benefit. Child benefit is something different. But of course, it's been framed as child benefit. It's been framed as, well, what we're doing is we're encouraging people to have more kids. Now, this is also strange from GB News because they have guests on all the time who say Britons need to have more kids. So which is it? You want people to have more kids or you don't want people to have more kids? But once again, this is not related to child benefit. This is related to universal credit. And remember, about 40% of people on universal credit are working. So of course you're going to hear well, if they're not working, they shouldn't be having kids, which doesn't make any sense because it's not related to that.
I'm amazed he's going down this route. I really am.
But do you think that what he's trying to do you think maybe he's going down this route, but if he were to bring in a policy like that, he would make a distinction between somebody who's been here and is a British citizen and somebody who perhaps has come here as a migrant, either legally or illegally?
I like how Reform UK friendly GB News is trying to interpret what Nigel Farage is doing in a very positive way for Nigel Farage. Of course, they're not going to criticise him. He's one of the staff. You know, of course, Nigel isn't going to support poor immigrants. He's going to support poor British people, right? We don't like supporting poor people, but if we have to be pushed into this corner, we're going to support poor British people. We're not going to support poor immigrants. We don't want immigrants, and we certainly don't want to support poor immigrants.
Do you suspect he might if he was to make that policy, make a distinction between that to encourage people who are British citizens to have children?
I think he'd have to put through primary legislation because otherwise the courts would just chuck it out. And then you end up with yet another row with the courts. And we don't want that. That's not the way to run Parliament. So he would have to have an absolute cast iron piece of legislation. Otherwise, it would just get ripped up.
I sort of take your point as well, that actually it just means that if you are on benefits, then you can have as many kids as you like and the state will pick up the tab. And as we...
Okay, but people don't have kids for the benefits. Maybe you can find a rare example, but generally people are not having kids because they can't afford to have them. And the support they're receiving from the state is not sufficient. But once again, we're not talking about child benefit here. We're talking about the universal credit. The universal credit benefit, or limit on 2 children. Once again, it's not child benefit. But who is having kids for the benefits? Honestly, once again, you may find some rare examples, but generally people are not having kids at all because they can't afford them.
We know years and years ago, people really took advantage of that. And you had people who were not working, just breeding because they knew that it would make them.
Wow. Breeding. What, like sheep or like rabbits? You know, I know GB News likes to dehumanize people, but to describe people as breeding, I haven't heard that argument for a while.
More money.
And the difficulty is they need a bigger house. Well, you know, in South Derbyshire, we've been really proud under the Conservatives before, always building council houses. But when...
Sorry, what? You haven't been building enough council houses. Your party, see, she's from the Conservatives or an ex-Conservative, your party sold off council housing. Sold it off to the private sector and didn't build enough council homes. That's why there's a housing crisis. You like to blame it on immigrants, but Tory policies, along with Labour not building enough sufficient council houses as well, is part of the problem, or the fundamental problem.
When you've got people with 6 kids, you know, they need 4 or 5 bedroom houses. That's tough. We can build 2 bedroom houses. We can build 3 bedroom houses. But building 6 bedroom houses is really tough. It takes a lot of land. And then everybody...
How many people have 6 kids? Like, if you could say, I'd love to see the percentages on this. Percentage of families with more than 5 kids. This is anecdotal, but I know maybe 1 or 2 families in my life who have more than 5 kids. But they're extremely rare, so I don't know what argument she's trying to make here.
Everybody else says, well, hang on a minute. You know, I look after my family. We do the right thing. It's just not... It's not fair.
It doesn't appear to be fair, but we do need more people, don't we, really?
Once again, you know, we can't attack Nigel Farage here because he's a member of staff. How can we try and spin this in a way that's positive for Nigel? If Nigel hadn't talked about this, GB News, of course, would be criticising, you know, it's ridiculous supporting people who are having kids that they can't afford. And that's the narrative, of course.
So that we can pay for the pensions because we have an explosion of older people. Not
we
literally,
do, and apparently I'm getting older by the day too. But what I find fascinating with this is we've got younger people there. We need to sort out what are the building blocks of what their lives really need. They need to get on the housing ladder early. They need to have a proper...
You were in power. Your party was in power and you did nothing to help young people. You actually made it worse. And now you're saying what we need to help young people get on the property ladder. I'm sorry, that ship has sailed. There's no point talking about helping young people get on the property ladder now. You should have been doing it 20 years ago.
Proper career. They need to feel that it is worth investing in their future in this country. If we get that right, then the rest falls into place.
Okay, so the problem is just housing. No, it's not just housing. It's also jobs. The Tories are against the idea of creating stronger working conditions. Reform UK are against stronger working conditions. They actually voted against policies recently that help workers. So it's not just housing. It's a whole range of issues that need to be resolved if you want people to have more kids. But at the same time, if you want people to have more kids, you need to provide support. But this whole argument here is, in part, we need to get rid of support for young people. We need to get rid of the idea of poor people having kids. So on the one hand, they don't seem to understand that as people get richer, they have fewer kids. If they have kids at all. Is it just because Nigel Farage is talking about this?
So you feel that we could encourage younger people to have children, keep the 2-child benefit cap, because actually you shouldn't really be just having lots of kids that you can't afford.
But it's not about encouraging people. It's about kids who are already in the world. The 2-child benefit cap, if it's removed, is not going to encourage people to have kids. It's going to lift a lot of kids out of poverty. These kids are already here. It's not about encouraging people. It doesn't encourage people to have kids. It didn't encourage people before. So why do you think it would encourage them now? This benefit under universal credit. Once again, it's not child benefit, it's separate. The whole approach to this is completely wrong. On the one hand, you're talking about something that's not related to child benefit, and on the other hand, you're suggesting that this is going to encourage people to have kids. There's no evidence to support that suggestion. Now, is this going to benefit Nigel Farage? Possibly, because he's exploiting a division within the Labour government. And what Labour need to do is they need to U-turn on this and say, look, we were wrong. We listened to the public, we listened to our MPs, and we realised this was a mistake. And don't allow Nigel Farage to take advantage of this, because Nigel Farage doesn't care about poor people. He cares about exploiting them.